Welcome back to episode 81 of the What Do We Do podcast. On today's show, with all the chaos going on, we're talking about strategies to help you on your financial journey. It's going to be a great show, so let's go.
Welcome to What Do We Do? A podcast discussing wealth management and financial planning featuring key leaders in our communities. Hosted by founder and CEO of Great Lakes Wealth, Dewey Stephan. Tune in to hear how you can plan for and live your best life.
Hey everyone out there in YouTube land and podcast nation, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the What Do We Do podcast. On today's show, we're talking investment strategies with 2 stars from our team at Great Lakes Wealth, Senior Wealth Advisor Bruce Palen and Wealth Advisor and Income Planning Specialist Zoe Baek, aka Zoe, in our office. I'd like to welcome you both to the show. Thanks for joining me today. Bruce, Zoe, how are you?
Thanks, Dewey. Glad to be here. Looking forward to it.
Thanks, Dewey. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, you bet. Well, before we get into the details of investment strategies in this current environment, let's share a little bit about each of you with our audience. Maybe, again, your background in general, as well as your expertise as wealth management advisors. Bruce, why don't we start with you? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, Dewey, thanks a lot. Well, I'm pretty much an all-Michigan guy. I was born in Michigan, went to school in Michigan, many schools I went to, and I currently living and working in Michigan. I have 1 wife, 1 daughter, and 2 grandkids, and unfortunately, they're not in Michigan. I've been in the business for 35 years, a little over 35 years, so I've seen a lot over the years.
Well, fantastic. And you've been with Great Lakes Wealth around 4 years now, is that right?
Correct, 4 years.
Well, fantastic. Well, welcome to the show. Thanks again for being here. Zoe, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm originally from Daegu City, South Korea. I have been in U.S. for about 22 years, and I used to be an elementary school teacher. I enjoyed that very much when I was in Korea, and now living in Michigan for about 20 years with my 2 boys and my husband.
I was going to say, fantastic. Will you please say hello to all of our listeners and all of our viewers around the world in Korean? Maybe share a little bit of your first language.
Sure, absolutely. Happy to do it. 안녕하세요. 저는 백공주입니다. 22년 전에 한국 대구에서 와서 미국에 살고 있고요. 그리고 지금 현재는 Wealth Advisor로 Great Lakes Wealth에서 일하고 있는 백공주라고 합니다. 반갑습니다.
That's such a beautiful language. That sounds so awesome. I wish I could speak a little Korean, but I'm stuck having you as the translator, which is a good spot for me to be in. So thanks again for being here, Zoe. It's a pleasure to have you with us. And you've been with our firm for just over a year now, I believe.
Yes, it is. But I've been in the industry over 10 years. I started with an insurance company, but I was working in the field and I was manager as well. And when I just started, I fell in love in what I do. And my passion is to educate people every day I meet.
Absolutely, and I can vouch for that for sure. And as an income planning specialist, Zoe helps our team discuss, again, strategies that are out there to generate recurring income for those clients that it's most appropriate. So again, thank you for being here, Zoe. And I'm going to turn the floor over to you two to talk about the investment strategies for today's podcast. But before I do, I'd like to remind our audience to go to YouTube, go to Spotify, go to Apple iTunes, and subscribe to our channel, like our channel, follow our channel, share our channel, because as we always say, the acronym team, together, everyone achieves more. And along those lines, the mission at Great Lakes Wealth is to provide Wall Street solutions with Main Street values to our clients and the community served. And one way that we do that is by having this podcast where we can share information and it's openly available to all of those in our community. So with that, again, I'm going to turn the floor over to you two, and I'm excited to hear what we talk about today.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Dewey.
Yeah, great. We're going to just ask each other questions and try and stump each other on a few things if we can.
The floor is yours. Let's go to it.
All right.
Okay, Bruce, I got a question for you. When I look on our Great Lakes Wealth website, and it shows that the title is a Senior Wealth Advisor. What does that mean?
Okay. Well, generally when you hear the term senior, it means that somebody's been in the business a pretty long time and they have a heck of a lot of knowledge about the business. And in my case, I think a lot of my clients think that senior wealth advisor means that because 80% of the money that I manage is with seniors, that they think that's what the senior wealth manager means. So there's some truth to both of those, but I actually deal with and plan for people of all ages. And really the best thing about being at Great Lakes Wealth is I'm a senior wealth advisor, but we have other wealth advisors. And they all have an expertise, and we work as a team so we can help everybody. Anytime they have a situation, we have someone we can lean on and help us out and get our clients the best we can get them. So Zoe, your title is income planning specialist. And nowadays, people really don't have pensions any longer. What's the best way to plan for income?
Well, Bruce, sadly, most of Americans nowadays, we don't have pension anymore. So first of all, we need to save as much as we can from current income. And if you're working for a company and if they offer 401k or similar retirement plans, and you need to sign up for that, especially if they offer matching 401k contribution, then there is no reason not to do it. And please make sure you not to leave free money on the table. And after that, when you do it, and just like Dewey says all the time, you would like to create multiple income streams. Yeah, you can check out Dewey's episode. And then if that is not too easy, then you may create accounts that taxed in many different ways. Preferably accounts that creates income tax-free money.
Wow. Tax-free?
Yes.
Help me out.
Sure. There are 3 ways to create income tax-free money. The number 1 is ROTH, Roth IRA, if you're qualified. And number 2 would be municipal bonds. So if you are a Michigander like Bruce, then you can buy municipal bonds to create federal and state income tax-free money. And number 3 is cash value life insurance. And then if you are currently not utilizing any of these, or you are utilizing only 1 or 2, please contact us to figure out how to maximize all these 3. So, Bruce, let's say a smart person to open an account, Roth IRA, and made a contribution, and now we would like to have that money to grow as much as possible. I know that you have been long time in this industry, and let me ask you, how can you make the most money in the stock market?
Okay, that's a great question, Zoe, because the people that actually made the most money ever in the stock market really only owned 1 or 2 stocks. But on the other hand, the people that lost the most money only owned 1 or 2 stocks. So at Great Lakes Wealth, we're not going to do 1 or 2 stocks or 1 or 2 funds. We want diversification. And when we have diversification, we use a variety of different funds, ETFs, and other investments that will complement each other and give someone a good, solid, long-term return.
That's right. You have to have diversification.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. The other day, I overheard you having conversation with some clients, and one client you talked to, you made a recommendation, specific recommendation to buy a certain investment. And the very next client you spoke to, then you made a recommendation to sell that exact same investment. What was that all about?
I remember that conversation, and it's really not a unique conversation. The person that I told to sell something, it was a 401k rollover, and they had all their money in one fund. I think it was a international small cap, which had done really well, and it for several years, and then it didn't do so well, and then it did well again. But this is all they had. So there's no way you're going to really diversify having one fund. So I had to suggest to the person that they really needed to consider selling a majority, if not 80, 90, 95% of that one fund. The second person that I talked to that I recommended to buy that, they had a pretty good portfolio, but they didn't have any international small cap. So it would have been a great compliment for them to add to it. So yes, it's always appropriate to diversify, and that's why I told one person to buy it and another to sell it. And that's the way you want to do it. You want to get diversified so they complement each other, because when certain things are going well, some other things may not. But we want to stick with it. We want to have diversification, and we want to have all the bases covered. So I hope that answers your question.
That is great advice. Yep. That's why you want to work with professionals.
I got another question for you, Zoe.
Sure.
So I've heard a lot that when people retire, that they expect to be in a lower income tax bracket. Can you address that a little bit? Because I'm not sure that that's always the case.
Well, that's typically a lot of retiree expects to be in a lower tax bracket because they don't make any more income. But then just like interest rate and inflation rate changes, and income tax bracket changes as well. So when you retired, and you need to prepare how the tax brackets will be.
It's a pretty good answer. Now, when you're saving money like that, you've got different kinds of accounts, I'm sure. And you mentioned something about getting tax-free money. That's pretty interesting. Do you know anything about inherited money? People that inherit maybe... well, the reason I bring this up, I heard recently someone said, if you really like somebody, you leave them your traditional IRA account. But if you really love them, you leave them your Roth. Can you explain to me why that might make some sense?
Yeah, when you retired, a lot of people leave their assets in IRAs and 401ks, which is taxable income. But then even though when you are retired, you may not be able to contribute to Roth IRA, but you can do Roth conversion according to your tax bracket. Always check with your tax professionals and your financial advisor. But then when you have Roth conversion, you would have more tax diversified asset. So for example, one of my clients, she became a widow and she's a single taxpayer. And then now she fall into higher tax bracket, and not only she pays a higher tax, plus she got into the higher Medicare premium as well. So before you get into RMD age, so you may want to make a plan with your tax professional, financial advisor to work on that. So that's my advice.
That's good advice, and I think they should come to Great Lakes Wealth for that.
Bruce, let's say a new client come to you and ask about advice, and how do you decide what to recommend?
Oh, another great question, Zoe. Most important thing in this business, and it's our number one rule, and it's been the number one rule forever, and it should always be, and it should be the number one rule for most businesses. Know your customer. And we do that by obviously getting to know them through asking questions, their background, how old they are, where they're working, when do they expect to retire, when they would like to retire, all kinds of great questions like that. And so we use a lot of open-end questions and let the client do the talking. Because the best thing about listening is you got 2 ears and 1 mouth, and you got to use them in that proportion in order to know your customer. So we also have, and I encourage people to do this once they come in and we have a conversation, to get onto our website, greatlakeswealth.us, and look up a section there. It says Riskalyze. And it's a short questionnaire, and it gives the client a lot better ideas on what their risk levels are, and it tells us what risk levels they're at also, and it opens up for more conversation, and that way we can design a portfolio for them that should be the best they can. Of course, this will change over time, but those are the way we start. We got to know our customer. We let them do the talking, give us the information, and we ask questions to fill in the blanks. Then we can devise a good financial plan for them.
Exactly. We value the most the relationship with our clients. That's number one. Absolutely. So, Dewey, what do you think about our advice or conversation today?
Well, you two are amazing, and I think this was great because I didn't have to do any talking. I got to use 2 ears and my 1 mouth, and I had the 1 mouth closed. That was fantastic. So I think it was great, and I think you hit on some fantastic points. As we always say at Great Lakes Wealth, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And so knowledge is power, and understanding where you are but where you're going is very important.
A lot of these topics that we talked about today, there's a ton of information in those. And not only is there a ton of information about investing and planning, but we also have good information that a lot of people would find enjoyable by a lot of celebrities from around Michigan and around the world, for that matter. So I strongly encourage everybody to go to our website, look it up, check us out. There's a ton of information in there that you're going to love to check out. So
yeah, thank
that's
you for that,
my
Bruce.
advice.
Absolutely. We are proud of the website. At the very bottom of the homepage, for everyone listening or viewing, we have tons of free calculators, free presentations, free questionnaires, all kinds of information from risk analysis to investment return analysis. So absolutely, Bruce, you're spot on. Besides the podcast, which is whatdowedopodcast.com, certainly go to the Great Lakes Wealth website, which, as Bruce said, is greatlakeswealth.us. Before we wrap up today's show, I'm going to ask you each if there's anything else that you want to share with our audience, whether it's about the topics that you discussed today or anything else just on the top of the mind. Zoe, we'll start with you.
Yes, I really enjoyed it today. Yeah, thanks for having me. And one thing I would like to share is that just like any other plannings, when you do it, it's like a work exercise at your gym. So financial planning is a journey. It's not going to happen over the night, obviously. So when you make a plan, and so you have to execute it, but it's going to do step by step. So daily make a small steps to improve your current plan. That's my advice. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, and thank you. That's great advice. Bruce, what about you?
How much time do I have? I think I could go on forever. I want to just bring up a story, and this is not a unique story by any means at all, but I had a client who had worked for General Motors for many years, and they were in their stock savings plan. And they, of course, back then, this was probably late 80s, and there was a kind of a saying that went around back then. You probably recall this, Dewey. As GM goes, so goes the nation. In other words, buying GM stock, you can't go wrong. So the guy's getting near retirement, and I said, well, how much have you saved up? And he goes, I've got all this great GM stock, and hey, it's wonderful. I said, that's the only thing you got? He says, I don't need anything else. As GM goes, so goes the nation. So, and hey, look, the stock keeps going up. They keep raising their dividends. And I said, well, did you ever think about diversification? So, well, why for? I said, okay. Well, guess what happened a few years later? The economy got bad. GM stock went down, went bankrupt, and he lost it all. Fortunately, we diversified out into a few other things, not as many as I had recommended, but it's just a good story. So stay diversified, get good advice. Come to Great Lakes Wealth.
Well, there you go, Bruce. Thanks for sharing that fantastic information for sure. And yes, diversification and not keeping all your eggs in one basket, right? That's the cliche that goes along with that. Mm-hmm. Well, again, thank you too for joining us today and stepping out of your offices for just a quick moment to share with our audience some fantastic information for today's show. So thanks for tuning in to another episode of the What Do We Do podcast. At Great Lakes Wealth, we provide Wall Street solutions with Main Street values to our clients and the communities we serve. But on the podcast, I always say, live your best life, be radically generous, a great big booyah to ya. And this is episode 81 with Zoe Baek and Bruce Palen, but we're just getting started.
The opinions expressed in this program are for general information purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or any specific security. It's only intended to provide education about the financial industry. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results. Any indices referenced for comparison are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. As always, please remember investing involves risks and possible loss of principal capital. Please seek advice from a licensed professional.